Hi everyone, this is Ben Proko with Trifit-XT, and I'm going to go over the Ironman 70.3 in Lubbock bike course. So, a little bit more about me. I'm a level 2 USA triathlon coach, been coaching for about 15 years, and I've done the race at Lubbock 16 times. And kind of one of the unique things about me is it took me 4 times just to get under 7 hours. That first time being 7 hours, 59 minutes, and 20 seconds, limping it. And that was back when the cutoff time was 8 hours, so I was struggling to make it in. And then the last 4 times I've been there, I managed to finish under 5 hours. So I have a range of knowledge, whether you're trying to be just finish the course or trying to go a little bit faster. I won't say I'm like fast, but I can get through reasonably now compared to how I used to be. All right, now the beauty of this course is we don't have to climb the hills like from several years past right out of transition. We get a nice warm up. And the biggest thing on these first stretches here for I think over 20 miles is going to be the wind direction. I felt foolish with last year's video, even though a lot of people said it helped. I was assuming these were the normal wind directions, and then race day, we had wind coming from this direction. So all the little things I did ended up being wrong. At least it gave me an idea of kind of what to expect. It was just all in reverse. But most likely the wind will be, kind of a headwind slash crosswind here, and makes this spot a little bit tougher. One of the main things and it's something I've noticed a lot, is if you can't make 56 miles in the aero position and you need to take breaks, try to time your breaks where you at least have a tailwind. Look for those sections where that headwind's really going to be strong, and really make sure you focus on your aero position there. And one of the great things with this course is you don't have to stay aero for 56 miles. You're going to be actually climbing for 10, 20 minutes worth over in these sections where you probably won't have to be in aero, or actually it's more beneficial to not be in aero position. So that being said, utilize the aero position as much as you can, but if you need to take breaks, try to plan them out strategically. I even do the same thing with my nutrition. Like if I need to take something, but I kind of have like a 15 minute window. Let's say the wind is coming from this direction and I need to get something in. I'm going to try to get it in here, not as much right here, because I'm going to be fighting that headwind sitting up like a parachute. This is where I really want to focus, staying in aero. And same thing going along here. This is where it changes. Last year we went this direction, which I really like. This one, can't really say I love this road here, unless they've repaved it. This is one of the rougher roads. I've had my aero bars knocked down pretty hard one time. I think it was maybe 2007. And it just, you really got to watch where your wheel is going. You can see these little dips. They're kind of like mini potholes, but you've got to really be looking out for them. And likewise, when you pass someone, give them a good amount of room here. This isn't the place to kind of get that nice slipstream and do all that mess, because they might try to avoid something at the same time. Then you kind of bend around, and the road's kind of smooth. I mean, I can't say smoother. It doesn't have as many like bump, pothole-esque things, but it is still kind of a rough road, and it's most likely into a headwind. And right around here is a windsock. It's crazy that I remember these things, even though I haven't been out there in years. But usually there's a windsock right around that area after it turns. And I just like to check the direction again. Which way is the wind coming from? If for some reason it is coming from, let's say this direction, from the northwest, or sorry, northeast, that's going to make this descent a little bit different than if it's coming from like the east or even some of these other directions. So, and also from a pacing standpoint, if you don't have a power meter, I would strictly keep this first section until you get to the hills as like a warm-up. If you're not very experienced, treat these first 20 miles like a warm-up for the hills. And then when you get to the hills, that's not a time to just try and destroy the hills either. You just want to be steady and smart on the hills. So I'm going to zoom in on this section right here, give you a little bit more input. Oh, and also before that, just because I caught my eye, the elevation here is 3,000 feet. Well, if you're coming from Boulder, that's a nice little, little reduction there. If you're coming from Houston, that's enough to kind of affect your power output. I lose a few watts when I've tested myself. I'll go to Lubbock and test the day before quickly, just check a few key numbers, and I do lose a few watts just from the altitude. But the other good thing about altitude is it actually makes it's less resistance for your bike. Compared to sea level, you can almost average between half a mile to a mile per hour faster just because of air density. So there's a plus side to it. All right, the hills. I saw someone on Facebook mention about arrow position. This is probably the only hill you could go arrow position. Actually, this hill goes all the way down here. It's quite long. This first part, if you're a little uneasy about the arrow position, I would stay up, because depending on the wind, it does weird things right here. It's very open in this section, and that wind kind of whips along here all different directions. Now, once you get right here, I kind of colored that in green. That section where it kind of levels out. So it's almost like it's two mini hills in one here. So this is where you can get in the arrow position. When you're coming down, make sure you shift so you're in one of your bigger gears, because then when you decide to start pedaling probably somewhere along here, you're not just spinning out. And then you kind of go through this cool canopy here of trees. And if you are a little bit more confident, or probably at this point you would be able to, or after the first part here, if you're someone who's a little bit more leery about getting an arrow position, you'd probably be able to get into it where the green starts and then stay in it through here almost all the way to this next climb. But if you're uneasy, I would stay up on this section right here. If you're someone where it's really not much of an issue and you don't mind going higher speeds, you could probably get down there. Again, I would check kind of look at the wind, see what the wind's doing. If it's a super gusty, windy day, I'll definitely even stay up here. Then that brings us to our first uphill finally, the golf course hill. And as you go up, look what it's like coming back down. There's a sharp left-hand turn, and that's a great opportunity to check that out. And then as you're going up, because there is a couple of turns, and one right here at the bottom, try to stay as far right as you can. They kind of they sometimes spray a little bit of a center line. There is no actual center line there, but they might spray some paint, kind of give you some guide. But again, I would just stay over as far as you can, just to let those people coming down have a little bit more room if they happen to need it. And then I colored this section in black. It's the only spot on the course like this, and it's not that long. I think it's only like maybe a mile or two. But if you climb this hill and you go too hard to where you're kind of going past your threshold, or if you have to, going by the normal wind patterns, this is where you're going to have just a straight headwind. So you climb this hill, and this is the unique thing about this course, and you don't get to go downhill. You climb the hill, and then it's just going to flatten out. And now you're going to be fighting, on some days could be a 20 plus mile an hour headwind, and it'll seem like this section is so long. So really try to pace this climb. Don't hit this climb hard by any means. Just find the gearing you need to get comfortable, and anytime you'll be able to make up. I can't believe how many people I actually passed just in this first section here because they went too hard on the climb. So just keep that in mind. That's the only spot where it's really that kind of 1-2 punch with a climb and a headwind, but it is worth noting because you can burn some matches there. Then you have a U-turn. Practice your sharp left-hand U-turns. The road is pretty narrow, So there's not a lot of extra room to kind of make the turn. So just keep that in mind. Then as you come down, definitely not arrow position until possibly after this sharp left. If you're very confident, you can make this sharp left. You could probably duck down and make this right-hand turn at the bottom, or this just a right kind of right. It still turns. It's not like a sharp turn, but you can make that turn. If you're not confident, I would just stay out of the arrow bars all the way until you've made that final turn, and it's going to take you all the way to here anyways, to where you have to make this right turn, go by the aid station. And this red dot, they put it on there. I had to check out what it was. That's where their EMS is going to be. Probably a good spot for it, considering the two hills are right here. Then you get to go up the spiral staircase. And with both these hills, on paper, I think they show like it's 6% grade and something like that. But there are portions of the hill that are closer to a 8% grade or even just a tad above that. So kind of have your gearing set for something that could do an 8% grade for you. Again, there's another sharp turn here. It's almost a decreasing radius turn. It seems sweeping as you go up, but when you come down, I swear it's sharper. It gets sharper as you go down. So just check that out as you're going down, and again, stay as far to the right as you can. Give those people going down just that little bit extra wiggle room in case something happens. And then you get to the top. I always thought this was a cool spot back when I raced, back when I had the old run course that went out to the energy lab, because you could see all the way out to that, or the baby energy lab. You could see all the way out back to the power plant. This is just real high section. And I just thought that was going to be neat. Like, hey, in a couple hours, I'm going to be all the way over there. But again, we don't have that run course anymore. So come on down. I would stay out of arrow. It's just not worth it. You could probably duck into it for a second, but you're going to be riding the brakes right here before this right turn. If you do get a little bit out of control, there is some barbed wire fencing along here that will help keep you from falling off the cliffs should you lose control. I mean, just kidding, but there is barbed wire fence there. Just don't lose control. So you make that right. You could probably go into arrow after that for this just a little bit more downhill. If you're not comfortable with that, I would say stay up until you get right here and get all the way back here. And then your final climb, it's not super steep, and this is one of the benefits of having that tailwind. You can just sit up here and make this climb. This is probably the steepest section of the climb right here. So you kind of go up here, again you level off and come up here. Now this is something different. I used to tell people on the old course, treat the end of this hill like the halfway point. And it was mile 40. This course is a little bit, you're actually not to mile 40 at that point anymore. So I would even save a little bit. If you're not pacing with power and you're a little bit inexperienced on this type of course, I would save your energy all the way until you get past probably this rough road again. And if you're still feeling good, go ahead and pick it up some and take it in feeling good. But I see a lot of people that pick it up too early. They're like, hey, I'm halfway done. And then they kind of like, oh, I got plenty more energy. And then they find out on this section here, they didn't have as much energy as they thought. And then they're not able to stay in the arrow position as much. And then they're starting to lose a lot of time. So again, be smart. I'm not going to talk much about this section here. One, a little bit new, so I probably know the roads once we get on there, but again, it's just a little bit different. I know there is a small overpass here, so you get a little bit of a hill at the end, but not as big as having these out here and pacing these properly. All right, power plan. And this can kind of, even if you're not using power, this can kind of give you an idea. Like if you had a goal of averaging or having a normalized power, which I recommend athletes go by, it's a little bit different than average power. Normalized is kind of takes into account the higher efforts and lower efforts more than just going by average power. So I put this to go at 200 on this model, but you can see even here's the 200 line. When you're on the flat sections, you're going to have to go a little bit below that, probably about 5%, because you got to have a little bit extra for the climbs when they pop back up. So it's kind of the big one with those. And then past years, this is last year's course, which I think is very similar to, it's going to play out very similar, other than it's probably going to be closer to 56 miles. You can see they're all a little bit short, but if you kind of look at the average speed, that'll give you an idea. This was back when the old course, but with two of the hills out, and then this was the full-fledged 8-hill course. I put all the parameters to be the same as far as like wind direction, everything, so it's kind of apples to apples. And you can see there's definitely a speed difference between the two courses. I think this one doesn't show you that this one still is pretty challenging, and this old course was definitely harder, and it says 5 minutes harder, probably a little bit more with the fact that when it took you into transition, it had you flying down the hill at 40 miles an hour, which wouldn't work out. And then you had a couple more. There were 3 U-turns on that course. So definitely a little bit easier course, but it's not like it's 30 minutes easier now. It's still a tough course. All right, and if you want a little bit more information on climbing, I'll have a video down in the description here. It's how to climb, where I'll show you on Zwift essentially the best way to climb hills to get the most out of your power. And then I do have some other videos about the benefits of training with power. And even if you don't have power, it'd be good to kind of check out some of those videos to maybe give you some ideas just on how you can kind of smooth out your efforts, even though you don't have a power meter. Because some of the examples on the hill training, I act like I don't have power because I go by the normal tendencies that when people kind of start off and they don't have power. And then I usually post a few updates like right before the race. I can't get everything posted on every group I'm in, so I just post them on my Trifit-XT page. Like if the wind's going to be doing something, maybe it's going to come out of the east or the west, and just how that might affect the race at the end. So I hope this was helpful. I love this race. It's really one of my favorite races. I'll do it every year that they keep on having it and I can make it there. And I hope to see many of you out there in a little bit. All right, take care.